It is Eric here from Boulder Road IO. In this tutorial, we're just going to go over the interaction design for this graph here. How do you make the graph load this line to the right on start, hover over for that 3D effect, and then most importantly, how do you actually get this tooltip to move with this mouse? So we're going to break down this component here in the interaction design. This was actually created by this Russian person here. Someone had asked, how did you actually make it? So I'm going to go through the tutorial, the most interesting part I saw, which was this graph. It's always nice to have a graph like that. You can check out this this guy's video by just searching financial dashboard mockup, UI, animation, and Protopie. Go ahead and type that into YouTube. And I've linked the Protopie link in the description below for this graph thing. So let's go ahead and jump right in. Let's minimize that. We're going to start with a blank canvas here. And you can see, I'm going to just quickly break down what this graph contains. So you have the graph area. There's 7 sections that we're going to use for the mouse over action. You have the tooltip itself with 2 text fields and the background. You have the graph line, which are these dots here, and the graph line, which is just an image. And we have a scroll line that is used with the tooltip, the title, and the axes with the card background. It's important to note that we are using a hidden opacity set to 0 on start background here for the shadow. You can see that now. And that's basically it for what's in here. And we're going to go ahead and start with the start function or trigger. So on start, we want this little nice line to load across the screen. So let's go ahead and do that. We're going to do that with the scale. And we're going to need 2 of these. So let's go ahead and say graph line. And I'm going to put the graph line in here so that it loads. All right, so width is 0, duration 0. So that means instantly when this thing loads, it's going to go ahead and be set to 0. And the coordinates is 438 wide. So if you see here, it's 400. Okay, 433 point. But that's fine, doesn't matter. And that's size. Okay, great. So now let's see what that looks like. So the line moves across, and I forgot the duration. We want that, let's just make it 1 second. Great, so it moves across 1 second, ease in and out, cubic. Now, this wasn't in the original pie created by that Russian dude, but it'd be nice to see the tooltip load with an opacity, so it lights up over the same time, 1 second, and we're going to set the opacity to 0 here. So there we go. So as the line approaches the scroll line, it's going to go ahead and do the same for the opacity, and let's go ahead and make the scroll line do the same. So this is the scroll line, and it's opacity 0 and 1. Great. So we got the points there. I'm going to throw these dots into this graph line container, and so you won't see them on start. We just need these for the coordinates of mapping this tooltip on the move. Now let's do the easy part here, which is we have this graph container, which has everything and the background. So what we're going to want to do is on the graph container, we're going to move it up by 10. And actually, no, we're going to move it. Yeah, in order to move it up, you got to do -10y. And this is on the hover over in and out of the graph card. So it's important to note that the graph background here is set to 10 pixels above the actual graph card. And so the reason we do that is just so that when we're hovering over, we're going to move the graph card up to meet the background as the background changes to full opacity. That gives it its nice clean 3D moving effect. And so we're going to move this back down On hover out, you move back down and change to 0. So let's see what that looks like. Oh. So it's important you don't say move to, you move by. Here we go. There we go. And important to note too that we want the background opacity to change, not the card itself. All right, debugging done. So now we have the start function where the lines are going to move across. And just to show you that the dots will not appear when it's fully loaded, you see here the dots are nice and clean. All right, so let's put that back here so we can have the coordinates. Great, so this was the easier part. Now it's the hard part. How are we going to make this tooltip scroll line move across and change the dot colors themselves? So we're going to go ahead and go into that right now. And that's where these graph area containers come in. So when we hover over, say, area 1, over, what we're going to want to do is let's go ahead and start with the move function. Where are you? Move function. So we're going to move the tooltip to the coordinates of this first dot. And you can see here the reason I kept the dots out of the graph line container is because we want the coordinates to move the tooltip to within this graph container. And you get that by just seeing the position right here. So it's 82, 89. So we're going to move the tooltip to 82, 89. And I'm going to show you this little thing that it's hard to debug, but the default state, if we go to the tooltip itself, for origin, this is super important because it can trip you up. Origin is always set to 0, 0 on any object or layer or container, and that's denoted here in this top left. And you use this map here to change it. So since our tooltip has the triangle indicator on the bottom, we're going to go ahead and set the origin to the same place as we see the indicator where the tooltip pops up from. If you had a left origin based tooltip, you would set the origin to the left here. And you can set exact coordinates with this XY location, but since it's directly in the middle with this tooltip, we're setting it to 50, 100 with just this little graph thing here. So that's just an important note. Now what's going to happen is if we look here, if we hover over, let's see what is going on. Hover over area, okay, not dot 1. So hover over area 1, it's going to move the tooltip. Just to see that. So it's great. It's right on the dot where we need it. And let's actually move it over 2. Because technically, let's set the origin for these guys right in the middle so that we have some clarity. And we'll get the coordinates. Because the default state, again, for these dots, it was in the top left. So the tooltip, just for perfectionists, we're going to move it over 3, and I believe this was 92. Now let's see. Is it going to move to the right spot? Yes. And I'll actually say that we'll move it up like 2 more so that it's not completely overcrowding the dot. Whoops. That would be 90. That should be fine. Great. So that's what we want. And maybe just to make the coordinates easier, let's just do this so that we get the top. All right, so now we got to move the scroll line. And this is a lot easier because you just need to move the X value to where the dot is. And we're going to say 85. And that's based on the area 1. Okay. So now we got the scroll line and tooltip moving. There are a couple things that need to happen. You'll notice that the text doesn't change. So how are we going to do that? We're going to go ahead and edit the text. We use the text function here. And we're going to set current value and the value change. So I have the value here in a text document for the value change as well as the value itself. So the value at this point is 1.1, and the value at change is this. So actually, it doesn't look like 1.1. It's going to be 1.1. Let's just say 2.5. Okay, so let's see that. You're going to see the text change. Great. And the last thing here is making sure that the color changes. So the dot is going to change to this red. So change the dot. It's going to be a border and fill with this red value here at 100. Border red 100. And this is just a little nice indicator to the user that this is, you know, a negative change in currency value over the last week. And the last color change that we're going to do is on the value itself. So what we want to have happen is, let's see here. On the tooltip, we need to show the value change as negative when you hover to .1, because the state of this text, it would stay red throughout hovering all of these unless we change the text. And the last point here is we're going to, since this tooltip originates from the 7th line here, September 27th, we're just going to want to reset the 7th dot to its default state, which is this purple, this blue fill, and the purple border. Great. And this, technically the default state for this should be red. So let's change that. There we go. All right, so we're getting somewhere. So this is the load, and now we've completed one of the tooltip move actions. Now we're going to go through really quickly through 7 to get the mouse over and out function done. All right, so I'm going to start with the mouse overs just to get that done. Let's copy this. So you're going to mouse over, this is area 2. You're going to move the tooltip to coordinates 155, 78, 155, 78, and this is 155. You're going to change the text to, let's see, what do I have in the text doc? It's 1.17, and the change is positive. So we're going to change the text color and dot to green, since the change is positive, from the 21st to the 22nd, and it changes the red dot. So now we got this. Ooh, let's make sure that we're using the right dot here. Dot number 2. Great. Text value. And let's also set this to change dot number 1 to the regular color. Great. So that's perfect. And actually no, we can have that on the mouse out. So on the mouse out of area 1, you're going to have the color of the dot reset, and that just makes this easier. Yeah. Dot 1 reset color on mouse out of area 1. Great. And we'll set the same here. This is area 2. This is area 2. All right, so we got the move of the tooltip to the right coordinates, the text changes to the value of dot number 2, and the value in text changes are reset. So great. we're almost getting there. And I'm sorry if it's hard to see this green. I have flux on, so that's just how it is. All right, so now I'm going to copy these two, and we'll just duplicate that. And this is going to be for area 3. Great. Let's get the coordinates. This is dot number 3. Dot number 3. We're going to move the tooltip to coordinate 228, 78, 228, 78, 228. And the text is going to be 0.1. Okay, so there's no change there. And so we're going to set the to no change. And it will stay green because there's no change. Great. Let's duplicate this. Only 2 more times, and then we're done. Well, 4. So I'll speed this up in the actual video so that you get the point. And then we'll go over what happens after that. So this is going to be area 4. Mm-hmm.
Sweet.
All right, so that was a quick review of actually getting these moving things working, the dot changes of color, and everything. So it looks like, let's go ahead and get these dots above the graph line because we got the coordinates of the tooltip working. I believe we just have one annoying little dot that's not resetting, and that's dot number 2 for area number 2. Let's go ahead and check and see what's happening here. On mouse out of area 2. That would explain it. There we go. So that was a quick tutorial of how to make the graph with an interaction design where it loads on the start here with this cool interaction, hover over with the tooltips. And yeah, if you have any questions, please let me know in the description, just in the comments below. I've also put the link to this graph component itself in the description. And like and subscribe for more tutorials. I come out with a couple every week or so. And yeah, thanks again for watching. Hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your day.